If everyone please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Yeah. Welcome all to tonight's meeting. Let's jump right into it if we can with the approval of the board minutes from our November 13th meeting. If someone would like to make a motion to approve those minutes. Dr. Eckers, second Ms. Benowitz. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Excellent, thank you. Next 4 items are for your informations that have been provided to the board ahead of time. The budget appropriations report for the general fund, the budget transfers over $5,000, and the revenue status, cash receipts, school lunch, as well as the warrants for October 2019. Any discussion, questions on those items? Then would someone like to make a motion to approve the treasurer's report for October 2019? Dr. Luce. Second. Ms. Napolitano, sorry. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Excellent.
Can I add something before we move on? Beginning with the next board meeting, one of the other items that will be added in this section will be the salary approvals, because we're moving away from the tray to a report, thanks to Jen Fresenda, where on the Friday prior to the meeting, you'll be provided with similar reports as we currently have now that you can review in a snap. Okay?
I don't know. I like
Thank you.
getting the giant thing of paper.
I think that action alone will save about a forest a week. Yeah.
All right, that is excellent news. Next is communication announcements. First is board member announcements. I hope everyone had a lovely Thanksgiving. I know that each of our schools does exceptional programming for Thanksgiving, both the lead up to charity items and so forth throughout, as well as a number of organizations throughout East Meadow. And I know each year I'm proud to see that East Meadow really does contribute and help their neighbors, and it really is something special and amazing. Any other board member announcements? Ms. Napolitano?
Good evening. This past Tuesday, I was invited to attend the School Bus Safety Forum in New York City, and I sat with New York City, 3 New York City councilmen that sit on the Transportation and Education Committee. And I have to tell you, although we were the only Long Island school invited, and by the way, we were really commended on our embracing the Stop Arm pilot program that we did last year. And so there's a lot of communication about the struggles that New York City has and that we have. And believe it or not, they're actually similar. In the snowstorm that they had last year, some kids were on the bus in New York City for up to 12 hours. And you can imagine the frantic parents trying to find their children. So there's going to be a lot more discussion coming down about this. Our Nassau County Legislature has approved this. They still have a little bit of work ironing out the details on, who's going to get the bidding. But I just want to say that we were really commended as a district that embraced the program. And I have to tell you, we had a number of infractions, and a lot of them were on roadways where we've heard complaints, over the years. And I have to tell you, I live on a very small block. It's an S-shaped block, and there were 4 infractions, which I found really surprising considering it's such a small block. But I'm really excited to see where this legislation goes, and I really would like to thank Dr. Card because last year when we were asked if someone from Bus Patrol could come and do a presentation, Dr. Card was very welcoming and very supportive, and this is one of the amazing things that we are doing in our district, so thank you.
And just so that I add to that, I don't like taking full credit for everything. I also want to thank Ms. Fresenda and Dr. Pizzo, because when you contacted me, I contacted them, who reached out and invited them in and had them do a presentation. So got to spread the wealth. Thank you very much.
Further board member announcements? Ms. Benowitz?
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight. I just wanted to mention something I had spoke to Dr. Card about as well. There's something that's very close to my heart, and it's about the mental health situation in our schools. And I know New York State has set mandates and stuff, and I just want to let everyone know that our district is doing so much, and we're embracing it. At PTA council meeting, Mr. Howard had mentioned on something that he was doing at East Meadow High School with his staff, and I just wanted to share that with you because he shared it with us, and I thought it was amazing. And I know that Clark is trying to replicate it in a smaller way, but they're working with it. And I just have to tell you, the initiative that he took, it's a monumental task. I mean, East Meadow High School is not a small high school. And he had all of his staff to minimize it because it's very complicated. But he had each of his staff members pick a student that they would have a relationship with. And it was a student that they didn't know. And they were going to try to foster a relationship with that child throughout the year. And I just thought, it's such a wonderful thing because sometimes there's a child that just gets lost, and to have a staff member looking out for that child, I just thought it was amazing. And I have to just say I commend him for it because I think a lot of time we don't see what's going on. And when he mentioned that at the PTA council meeting, I was just really moved that he took the initiative to do that and he saw a need in his school. So I just wanted to share that with you all.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Benowitz. Any other board member announcements? If none other, then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Card for the superintendent's report.
Very good. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our December board meeting. As always, we're pleased to celebrate our students, so I'd like to take a moment to congratulate a few of them on some of their accomplishments. Congratulations to the following W.T. Clark Middle School students whose poems were selected in the Young Poets Contest. Abigail Feinsteb for Yummy Writer, Arpita Rache for First Snowfall, and Lena Resende for Christmas Morning. Congratulations to the following students on being selected as valedictorians: Ishu Pandey of East Meadow High School and Abhishek Ravindran from W.T. Clark High School. Also, congratulations goes out to Brendan Wachowski from East Meadow High School and Arjun Pansky on their selections as salutatorians. So I hope you'll join me in applauding these students for their wonderful accomplishments. Safety continues to be a district priority. Our next district-wide safety task force meeting will be held in March. We continue to assess our security protocols to ensure we are engaging in best practices related to safety. To that end, our district has developed partnerships with the Nassau County Police Department Division of Homeland Security, and during our required drill, there's always or usually a police officer from Homeland Security there to observe and provide feedback to our staff, which is critical. Lastly, I want to remind everyone that our next Board of Education meeting will be our holiday celebration, in quotes. Holiday. Okay.
No, the meeting in quotes.
The meeting. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
It will be held on Wednesday, December 18th at East Meadow High School. This meeting is, as I said, our annual district-wide celebration where we have musical groups from each of our schools there to perform for the Board of Education and everyone in attendance. So I hope to see you there on December 18th. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Card. The next item on the agenda is the first of the two public commentary sections. This is the section for people who would like to approach the board regarding issues that are on tonight's agenda. I did get one blue card already. If you would like to speak tonight, if you could please fill out a blue card over there and hand it in. The one now is for the second commentary section, which we will address then. Is there anyone who would like to address the board currently? Okay. Then we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, and I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Casamento.
Yes.
So we have two presentations. One will be by me, but we're going to start with our first one. And this is another graduation.
Could we pause for 1 second?
We're doing,
Pause 1 second.
this is Mr. Russo then.
Yes.
I asked you.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so I'd like to introduce Mr. James McCabe. He's our new chairperson of Science at East Meadow High School. He's here to join us this evening so he can be formally introduced to the Board of Education. And I'd like to welcome Mr. McCabe to the district and wish him all the best. Okay, at this time, I will now turn it back over to Dr. David Casamento.
All right, so we're back, and and we have two presentations tonight. The first one is the New York State Seal of Biliteracy. This is actually a seal that will go on a student's diploma, indicating that they are literate in more than one language. And we have had a team of tremendous professionals who are here with us tonight, who worked on this with myself and Ms. Morgani, Ms. Morgani more than myself, and this was presented to the PTA Curriculum Council. Oh my God, it was a while ago now, right? Yeah, November 4th. I'm going to turn it over to them, and they're going to tell you about this new graduation seal that students will be eligible for, and how we're moving slowly with it. This is a big project, and they're going to talk about that when they go through it. And so we are starting small with the intent to grow the program. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Morgani and Ms. Dowling and Ms. Maria Miller and Ms. Baglivo.
Good evening, everyone. We're so grateful that we're able to present the New York State Seal of Biliteracy to you all tonight. So basically, what is the Seal of Biliteracy? So the New York State Seal of Biliteracy was established so that we would be able to recognize high school graduates who have achieved a high-level proficiency in listening, reading, writing, and speaking in more than one language and in addition to English. So basically, we're highlighting students who are biliterate. Ms. Miller, teacher at Clark High School, and Mrs. Baglivo, teacher at East Meadow High School, are going to walk you through the intent and requirements in order to earn the Seal of Biliteracy.
Thank you. The intent of the seal as posted by New York State is to highlight the value of being diverse in a society that is multicultural and multilingual, and encouraging students to study foreign languages in order to do this. It also validates the skills of the English language learner. In order to identify these students, the seal is also to identify high school students who are graduates as possessing high language level skills in being biliterate for both college admissions and future employees, making them more competitive and more marketable. And finally, it is to prepare students with skills necessary for the 21st century. In order to fulfill these requirements, they must first be able to have all the necessary requirements for obtaining a Regents diploma, and also demonstrate proficiency in both English and world languages. After that, they must fulfill the criteria for both English and world language, and I will address the world language. World language, they have to have been at checkpoint C and obtain a grade of 85 or better in that checkpoint. Checkpoint C would be anything above level 3 of foreign language study. Also, for this year, because we're hooking it to the AP, the Spanish language AP, we are going to have them present a portfolio. So that would give them 1 credit for being at checkpoint C and 2 points for their portfolio. And the portfolio, again, will be linked to the AP.
Hi, good evening. I'm Liz Dowling. I oversee English and ENL at East Meadow High School. For the English component, there are 6 points possible. Students must earn 3 points. So they can score 80 or higher on the English Regents, or for English language learners, they can score 75 on 2 other Regents exams. L's score at the commanding level on 2 modalities of the NICES lot exam. That's administered each May. Complete all 11th and 12th grade ELA courses with an average of 85 or higher. And they can also achieve the following scores on the exams: 3 or higher on the AP exam and 80 or higher on the TOEFL. For the English component, the 2 points, we're offering the scholarly essay, which will be a research paper. And it will be a topic of students' choice, and that would be 2 points toward the total of 3 points.
Okay. Again, for world languages, they're going to complete a portfolio, and in that portfolio, students will compile a portfolio surrounding the themes that are studied in the AP course. Okay, and these themes are global challenges, contemporary life, personal and public identities, family and communities, beauty and aesthetics, and science and technology. Again, these are the themes that are addressed in the AP, so we're really not asking them to do something that they're not already completing in the language.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Natalie Baglivo. I'm the Spanish teacher at East Meadow High School. So as Ms. Miller just stated, the 6 themes that are covered between 11th grade and 12th grade, the students already are obtaining all the information they need for those 6 themes. They will choose the one that they feel the most comfortable with and then use that theme to create their portfolio. So now what goes in their portfolio? It's going to be in the form of a binder, and it's going to have the 3 modes of communication, which is interpersonal, interpretive, and presentational. For the interpersonal element, it's going to be 2 recorded conversations that they would have completed throughout the course of the school year. They pretty much just choose their 2 best ones. That piece obviously can't go into a binder, so that's going to be uploaded onto our Google Classroom. The interpretive piece and the presentational piece will go in the actual binder. For the interpretive element, the students will choose 3 artifacts. It could be either an article, it could be a video, it can be a listening, and they're going to have to answer some questions based on that artifact and kind of synthesize how that artifact, those 3 artifacts that they chose, relates to their chosen theme. And then finally, for their presentational element, the students will give a 5 to 8 minute presentation on what we call a cultural connection, connecting a cultural aspect of a Latin American country to their own home culture. And again, these are all activities that we already practice in class. So what we're asking them to do to obtain the seal and prove that they are bilingual or biliterate is not anything too extra for them. So both the Clark students and the East Meadow High School students are really, really excited to kind of be rewarded for all the work that they already do.
Students will be assessed in the same 3 modes of communication in English as well. The interpersonal, they'll engage in formal conversations regarding their research. For the interpretive, they're going to read, interpret, and analyze information from various sources. And for the presentational element, they will do a written presentation, which will be in the form of a scholarly essay, and they will have an oral presentation where they present research findings to an audience.
In order to evaluate the students for the world language piece, We are using the ACTFL rubrics, and using these rubrics, the students must achieve an intermediate high proficiency. At the middle school level, if you look at the model on the projector, at the middle school level, they're at the very base, novice low. We expect that by the time they reach the AP level, they'll be at least intermediate high, and we definitely have some students that go beyond the intermediate high, but those are the rubrics that we use to evaluate each mode of communication for the Seal of Biliteracy. And then finally, this is the application that our students have already filled out. Since we're just offering it this year to the Spanish AP courses, every student that applies is going to have the opportunity to achieve the seal. Now, in the future, when there are more students applying for it, perhaps the selection process will be a little bit different, but what's great about them filling out the application, it's holding them accountable for committing to making the portfolio and meeting with their mentors who are their their AP Spanish teachers, and meeting all of the deadlines. So a copy of this application goes to us, their AP Spanish teacher, and also to their guidance counselors. So there are a lot of people involved in the Seal of Biliteracy, but it's definitely something that, again, our students are super excited about, and they're all interested in doing. Both of our entire classes are, so.
So as Dr. Casamento mentioned, we are starting small. We're doing it in the Spanish AP classes this year, but next year our goal is to open it up to all of our college courses in level 5. So that would be in ASL, Spanish, Italian, and French. So we started small, but then we're going to grow greatly next year. And then after that, we'll just keep adding and adding and adding. And as we grow, we are going to learn, and we're going to take people's suggestions, and then we'll just make it even better. And thank you.
I just want to also add real quick that we have about, Ms. Dowling, I can't remember, was it 3, 6? I can't remember the number.
I sat with 6 Ls, and we went over what they already had the criteria for, and so far 3 of them submitted applications, 3 of the 6.
So for this year, there will be some students who aren't in that AP course, but they are bilingual because they have a home language, who would be eligible to participate in this seal as well.
Excellent. Any questions from the board? Sounds great. Thank you very much. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you. And up next is Dr. Casamento to give us an overview of the district academic data from the 2018-2019 school year.
Great job, Liz. Great job, Jason. Thank you so much. Yep. So, yeah, we're having a couple tech issues tonight. It'll come up eventually. So this is a review of the data, and once again, East Meadows data on the 3 to 8 testing, New York State Regents program, ACT, SAT, college acceptance, far surpasses the Nassau region. We do a great job here, and this is just, it shows us how good we are, but it also shows us where we can improve, and that's important as well. So with every district profile, we start with the demographics of the district, and you can see that for the most part, you've got little blips here and there of the different subgroups that New York State uses. But we stay pretty constant, but one area that you will see that's increasing in the East Meadows School District is our students who come from economically disadvantaged homes. And what's really great about this data, and something that this community should be extremely proud of, is that when we look at our numbers and disaggregate the data for these tests, our students who come from economically disadvantaged homes are doing as well or sometimes better than students from homes of non-poverty. And that's a real point of pride. You can see the district enrollment by grade, and that's staying relatively constant. You see as they get, the bulk of our students are in the upper grades, and our lower grades are not as high. Those numbers tend to grow as we go along, but as of right now, we've got the bulk of our population in the upper level grades. So the 3 to 8 data, I have it on my laptop if all else fails. It's not the end of the world. Do you want me to go grab my... This is 72 slides. Yeah, in my bag is that adapter. It's a black, it's in the back pouch. In the middle, it's a black adapter about this. Bring the whole bag. Just bring the whole bag. We're getting the backup plan just in case this happens again. Okay, we got further this time. So you look at our number of students tested year to year. So the darker band is the 2000, gosh, I can't even read that from here. Yeah, the darker band is the 2018, the lighter band is the 2019. And so what you actually see is that in grades 3 and 5, more students tested this year than the year before. Grade 4 about the same. And same with 7. We went up, and grades 5 and 6 and 8 went down. Our proficiency remains high compared to the region being Nassau County. We continue to outperform on the ELA. One area of concern that this did show us, however, is our grade 7 data did go down from the previous year. And although we're still above the region, that's an area of concern. And that's an area that Mr. Lukasik and Ms. Regan and the teachers, middle school teachers, are actually looking at. And we did some data dig yesterday on this. This is a crazy kind of chart, and every year I say I need to do something different with this, and I really do. So this shows you by subgroup, by grade, how they did. When you look at the 3rd grade, year over year, each subgroup did better. But as you look at the other grades, some of our subgroups on the ELA did go down. And this is, again, data that we're looking at. The math participation rate, again, continues the same trend that we saw with the ELA. Proficiency in math is extremely high. So what you see is, again, look at our grade 3. Like I don't remember exactly, but in grade 3, we were in like the top 3, I think, of the county. Math shows a little bit different story with our subgroups. Our subgroups continue to do better year over year on the math exam. And so this is truly encouraging news. Science 4 and Science 8, the Science 4 test has not changed since 2001 in terms of the performance part of the test. The written does change, but it's a relatively known exam. So our students do very well. More parents are comfortable having their students sit for this test because they believe it's a fair test. This is the last year that we'll be getting a Science 4 test. There will be no Science 4 test the following year, and the year after there will be a Science 5 test in a whole new format. So our 5th grade teachers are working towards getting ready for that. Proficiency, again, you see that we do quite well year after year on this 98, 99% on the grade 4. Grade 8, the interesting thing here with grade 8 is we do well. You see it's not 99, 98. We take out our students who take the Regents. Our 8th grade students who are accelerated for 8th grade, they're not in this count. They show up in our Regents data, which we'll do next. Back one more. Keep going. Keep going. Does it not like English? Can you go forward if we start algebra? So we'll start with the English Regents. And if you recall, you probably don't recall, but last year we looked at our English mastery rate. And you'll see here that for this last year, our passing rate went 95% and mastery at 64%. So thanks to the work of Mr. Lukasik, Ms. Dowling, and Mr. Sarandria, we actually did see an increase in our students' English proficiency.
Could you just do me a favor? Could you clarify what is mastery?
Mastery, those are scores, student scores that are 85% or better. The global, this exam is actually changing this year. This is the results from the transition. We did see a small dip here, both in passing and mastery. This is work that Mr. Mendonis is doing with his teachers right now. It's just spinning, Joe. Joe, let me just use my laptop. I'm sorry about this. Give me 2 seconds. We'll get this up in no time. Just grab the VGA off of that, and we'll go right from here. I've got the... There's no VGA. Oh, you want to switch that way? All right. Are you stuck again? Yeah. There's no VGA cable at all, Joe? Is there a spare VGA in the drawer there? This is connected to HDMI, right? To VGA. We just finished global US. We're up to US. Sure. I don't. I just have the for the Surface. Do you have one in your office? So this is an exciting presentation to begin with. When we have snafus, it makes it all the more exciting for you. It's a ploy. So then we go to the U.S. history. Again, here we saw a slight decline in scores, passing down 4%, mastery down, what was that, 8%. So again, this is another area that Mr. Mendonis has been tasked with to work on with the social studies folk. Algebra. This one was a huge gain for us because we saw the dip last year. You saw we went from 97% to 88%. And this was an area where Ms. Harley worked very diligently with her staff. And we saw a rebound in the percent passing, and now they'll work with the mastery on that. The way that they solved that was that they created common assessments. So all students across the district, no matter if you're in Clark or you're in East Meadow High School, there's a common assessment, and we're able to look at the data for students and track who's on target and who isn't on target. And so that was a huge increase for us. You know what? Scrap that. I'll just do it off of. The clicker won't work. You're just going to scroll when I go. Yep. All right. We're going to do it a little bit differently now. Geometry. Geometry saw an increase as well. Again, common assessments are in place in geometry. Scroll down, Mike. Algebra 2. Algebra 2, we continue to do well. However, what you'll notice, if you compare the number of students taking geometry at 568, and you go down, and you see that there's only 446, you would expect your numbers to go up because you've eliminated some of your students who may not succeed in the course. So, but that's still a very high number. When you look across the region at this test in particular, the numbers are really low. Living environment remains constant throughout. Earth science, small dip. Nothing that we're alarmed at this point, but we did do a gap analysis on this test. Chemistry. Chemistry is an area that is constantly a difficult test because of a downward grading. I always talk about this. We did see an increase in the percent passing, but our mastery we struggle with the mastery on this. And again, we are looking at this in depth. Go down. Physics. Physics is great, right? We see a 96%. We went from 82 to 96. Well, that doesn't tell the whole story. The physics Regents was given after our students graduated, so our seniors didn't come. And so those are the juniors. This counts for the juniors. They're happy, and that makes everything good. AP results. We're going to go quickly through these. Okay, so what's great about the AP, we see AP participation dipped by 4 kids, no big deal there. But, because you want to see more students taking the exam. Let's go down. But when you look at, we have about the same number of students, but we gave almost 30 more exams. And not only did we give 30 more exams, but our students continue to excel. For example, East Meadow High School had 56 more students take exams this year than the year before, and their percent of success went from 76 to 84%. An 8% jump with more students taking it is huge. That's telling us we're doing something right. We're offering more opportunity, and they're succeeding. Again, this is just another way to show the AP passing rate. This is the first time East Meadow has ever had 80% of its students passing, meaning a 3 or higher on an AP exam. Art history, we're just going to go through these quickly now. Not that quick. Art history is independent study, so that student did well. Biology. Biology, 94%. We did see a decline in the number of students taking it. You would hope that you'd see an increase because you have less students taking it. However, I know the numbers this year are higher, so we'll get a good read next year on how that goes. Calc AB, actually, again, we had a decrease, so you would expect to see an increase. That's same there. Calc BC, these are our very top kids. And so what you see is we did actually see a decrease, but we actually saw more students trying to take this exam. So that's actually good news. Chemistry. First time chemistry's been offered here in East Meadow as a class, not independent study, in, from what I understand, 10 years. And so 77% of our kids, that's a huge compliment to the teachers at both Clark and East Meadow High School. Comparative government and politics, we didn't have many students take it, but they did well. Computer science A, we had more students take it and a 22% jump. That's huge. English language composition, this is one of our highest attempted exams. So again, 138 kids, 73% of them, that's huge. That's probably a sixth, maybe a fifth or fourth of our total population of high school students taking this, so that's good. Literature and composition, this is a senior class, and anybody who's taught seniors know that if you can get 86% of seniors through an AP, you're doing pretty darn good. Environmental science, so going from 83% to 86%, I will say at East Meadow High School, Mr. Nair got 96% of his students through this exam. Huge. Again, seniors. European history, no one took it this year. Keep going. Macro, 2 students took it. Did great. Micro, the same 2 students took it. They got 100. Music theory, independent study, 1 student got 100. Physics 1. So if you're not in Regents, you're going to be in Physics 1. AP Physics 1, 20 more students take it, 10% increase in passing on that. Physics C, there's 2 different exams. The physics, electricity and magnetism actually is the one that students can opt to or not to take. And so 9 students attempted it, 78% passed it. Mechanics is the one where they don't opt. 10 students took it, 100% passed that part. What's great is that only one of them decided not to take it if you look at those 2 numbers. Psychology was an area that Mr. Mendonis worked on with his teachers last year, and you see that although there were 8 less students, the percent up was 13%. That's a good number. Spanish language, we always do well on. 1 student messed us up to go down 3%, I guess. Statistics. This is a course at East Meadow High School that they have like a 96% passing on this as well. So 75% passing that. Studio Art 2D, this is going to have a new name, and I was just with the AP Art teacher at Clark yesterday, and the AP has not released a lot of information on what this new exam is going to look like. So those 2 teachers are going to be going to a training, I believe next week, where AP is actually going to give them more information on what their curriculum should be and what this test is going to look like. Nothing like doing it mid-year. But our students do well. 3D, again, is independent study. Studio Art Drawing Portfolio. We had less students take it, less students succeed. Again, this was a very small number of students, and I don't know the numbers for this year. This is our biggest. U.S. government and politics, 155 students taking it, 84% passing. That's huge. U.S. history, 118, 83% passing, consistent. I mean, like, look right across, everything, it stays the same. World history, 113 students take it. These are 10th graders, 82% passing. SAT, ACT. Continuing on the SAT, what's great about the SAT scores, we continue to excel on the SAT. You look at our scores versus national, you look at our scores year over year, the numbers just keep going up. ACT, our numbers are below the New York State, but we have very few students who actually participate in this exam. our graduation data. You look at our graduation rate of 93%, the advanced Regents diploma 63%. One thing we didn't talk about when we talked about the seal of biliteracy, a student who takes the seal of biliteracy will also, if they aren't already an advanced Regents student, they would be counted as an advanced Regents student moving forward. Where do kids go? So you see the two schools, East Meadow High School, Clark High School, and four-year colleges, 70% at East Meadow High School, 73.4 at Clark, and then you can see where the rest of our students go. Those numbers are changing in an upward trajectory for four-year, and that's been consistent year over year. I think that's it. Scroll down, is that it, Mike? And that's it. Sorry for the glitches.
Thank you, Dr. Casamento. Any questions or comments from the board?
I'm just impressed with the number of AP exams that our kids are taking and how well they're doing in them. Having taught AP classes myself and seniors as well, I understand how difficult that is. And I just think that it's very impressive. So thank you to everybody in our faculty working with the kids on those AP classes. I know one of our goals a few years ago was to increase the number of kids going to four-year universities. So I look forward to seeing the data from that at the end of this year. But we are in the 70s now, where a few years ago we were in the 60s. So I do remember that number specifically. And, I think it's a nice trend in general. Our kids are going to college. I know the statistic that kind of matters also is do we follow our kids after college, to see what the graduation rates are from college, as some districts do that. I'm not sure what our plan is for that.
So now that we have a director of guidance, this is something she has actually been tasked to do. It is in the instructional data warehouse, and she is able to get that data if they continue to report. That's the problem. The data is only as valid as the college's report and the kids actually. It's hit and miss with the privates. And the militaries are not reporting right now.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next presentation.
Next presentation, we have our annual claims auditor presentation, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Pizzo.
All right, thank you. We have Lori Carrick, our claims auditor, here to present today. We have everything ready to go, and Lori, I'd like to welcome you up. Would you like me to do the advance, or would you like to do?
Just push the which button?
Yeah, just push it.
That one?
There you go.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I've been working with the district as a claims auditor for the last 12 years, and I'd just like to go over a few things. My responsibilities as claims auditor is to assume the power of the Board of Education of approving or disapproving claims against the district. I'm responsible for reviewing all the voucher packages prior to payment by the district, and I report directly to the Board of Education. You saw this. The scope of my work is to ensure the mathematical accuracy, to determine if the claims are valid or an original, compare each claim against a purchase order, determine that the goods or services have been received prior to request for payment, verify conformance to purchasing policy, verify purchasing agent approves all claims, and approve and sign all warrant reports, and I provide a monthly exception analysis to the board. This is just a repeat of what I do. The monthly analysis, I review all the monthly claim activity and a total number of exceptions by dollar value, total number of claims by dollar value, by fund, by check order, exceptions as a percentage of the total claims, and I've been collecting this data over 11 years. Okay, now you can see from last year to this year, we've lowered our claims exception by, one, it's going down, and we've had, more claims, so that's a good thing. We're in the right direction. And I just, you can see here, this is the year-to-date exception analysis, that our exceptions have gone down 10% over the last year. And Dr. Pizzo has put into place a good system to communicate to the buildings if they're doing something wrong and having them correct it. He sends out memos and stuff, so everything has really been going in the right direction. And we have The business staff is knowledgeable and diligent. They always resolve my questions and inquiries efficiently, and they provide me with the complete documentation with voucher packets for claims review, and minimal claims were found. So I think, we've been going in the right direction every year to minimize, our exceptions and whatnot. So if anybody has any questions.
Any questions from any board members? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Okay, if the board's ready, we could move on to Denise Longobardi, our internal auditor, who also has her presentation ready. And I'll help you if you need.
Yes, if you don't mind.
Hello, everyone. I'm Denise Longobardi. I've been with the district since 2005, doing the internal audit here. Every year, we're required to present to the board a risk assessment and go to different areas of the district and look for their controls and see if there's any place that we could possibly make some improvements in either efficiency or making a process a little bit better with the workers in general. So I'm going to discuss I'm going to move to page 4 because this is just what the risk assessment is, and I'm going to just go through some things quickly because it is boring. I'm sorry. But it's required. In some areas, I'm going to just talk about resolutions that we've come up with, and then some areas I'm going to list some of the benefits if you would implement some of the things that I am recommending. This past year, from prior years, we implemented passwords in order to ensure the integrity of the computer system, and the Director of Technology, Ms. Nacarado, sent out a memo to all the employees, giving them directions on how to update their passwords frequently so that it keeps the integrity of the system. Transportation, we continue to participate in a consortium. School lunch, it continued compliance, and the program is self-sustaining, and revenue is being reinvested into equipment, into the older kitchens. Page 5. The board has been very busy in updating the policy book. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but it is great to see that they are looking at everything and updating it to current guidelines. We also last year finished updating an employee job specification book on the clerical level, which was very helpful when there was some turnover due to retirement in positions. We had the data of what each individual did here at the central office, which helped in the transition for training. I'm suggesting that maybe we could move that to getting some information at a higher level with administration and putting some information together for that going forward, if we could. Page 6. Cash management. I did a small review of deposits, and I recommend that we could add a little more detail into descriptions so that it'd be easier identifiable, and we should set up a standardized cash receipt form. Bank reconciliations, we need to establish a procedure and also follow up on any stale dated checks. Page 7. Purchasing, Lori just went through with her presentation. It is all positive from when all these laws came out because of Rosalind stealing the money, with this district stealing the money. That's how these positions have been created, to put a localized monitoring on districts. And as Lori said, we are making great strides in reducing our exceptions, and that's a big
attribution to the business office, working hard with the staff. The only thing I'm going to recommend, what we did update this past year, Dr. Pizzo, updated the travel reimbursement procedure, so it would be much more clearer to all the employees who go on conferences on behalf of the district. And also, I'm recommending that the vendor name change authorization should be at a supervisor level. Little something, not too much of a problem. I'm going to skip 8 because Lori gave you all the statistics on accounts payable. Grant management, in 2015 and 16 and 16 and 17, the district spent approximately 95% of the grant money. We made an improvement in the 17-18 year to 96%, which was an improvement. And even though that there is allowance for carryover of grant money, I'm just recommending that we should monitor the spending a little more closely if possible. On 10 and 11 show in the bottom right-hand corner what we underspent in the grants. So, So it went down significantly from the first analysis to now we had 90,000 less in that we did not spend, but can carry over. So on page 12, there are some suggestions because there are some, the district is going to be in negotiation for contracts with employees. So there's some things that I'm recommending for some cost-saving plans possibly. And also trying to, the district is now working with Envision to try to streamline some of our practices of when we hire employees, the detailed paperwork. We're trying to, reduce the amount of paperwork and trying to get it onto our system in Envision. And I believe, I think in January, we're supposed to be starting up something with Envision. They're in the final negotiations with that. And that's going to be very good. It's going to be, saving some time, and it'll create a better database in our system. So I'm very excited about that. Okay, page 13. This year, this is the area I concentrated on in employee attendance tracking. I did some work the year before, and I did some follow-up work. There has been some improvement in the sign-in process of employees at the building levels. It's something that one of my recommendations possibly in your negotiation is many school districts who have Envision have a timepiece, which is a biometric tracking of employee attendance, where when they come in, they either punch in a code or they scan their badges as a part of their attendance records, which may make it easier that people are sometimes forgetting to sign out of the building. It's just a matter of being able to track bodies and everything. And making sure that it was also for safety purposes these days. So, let's see. Also, I took a look at comp time and overtime, and this year we made some changes. Some of them are like a little bit more time-consuming constraints until we can possibly put in some things with the biometrics, but we needed to reel it in from like the local level at the school level up to administration, and we put some things in place so that we had better tracking here in administration for everything. So, and I think that's something that we're going to try to work with. Mostly this is in facilities that they have most of the overtime or comp time. So I think that they're working on a new system that they wanted to start tracking with those times. And let's see. Capital projects, I recommend to continue working with a consultant for the reporting to the state, since the state makes it so difficult for us to get our money back from them in order for all our projects. In CAPE, one of the things I did work on was I noticed that the deposits were at the building level were a little bit lagging in getting into the bank. So I'm recommending that we have a little bit more of a timely deposits from that, because some of them were deposited at the end of the summer, which is close to the end of when the program ends. And then it's hard if there's any kind of, bounce checks to get them back from the parents. So something that we can make a little bit of an improvement on. The electronic fuel management system, the project was approved by the state, but it has not been installed. I'm recommending the installation for better controls of logging fuel inventory, and for information technology, the disaster recovery plan is something I think that IT and facilities should work together to come up with one big master plan. This past year, the Smart Bond Act was approved by the state in June 2019. And internet safety protection, many of the districts on Long Island have been compromised. I work at several districts where the system completely shut down for days. So I know Joanne's been working hard with other staff and administration to make sure that we're keeping one step ahead of these people that are hacking into the systems. And she's constantly sending out some kind of correspondence to the staff of if, any kind of suspicious activity and what to look for, which is very proactive on the district's part, I feel. Transportation, as you were talking about before, I think it's wonderful that the district is initiating this pilot program with the state and for the safety of our students. And let me see what else. And I think that's it. I try to keep a little brief. So overall, everyone at the district has very good controls, and we should be proud of the administration on how important it is to make sure that we're in compliance with keeping it up with the laws and compliance with the state. So, thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
And we'll have our response to the board as required, which we're looking forward to doing because there's been so much progress made. Now we're just hoping that we can get the presentation going.
Very good. As we're setting up for the next presentation, Dr. Pizzo is now going to provide us with a presentation related to different options on turf fields. As some of you may recall, or as the board may recall, at our last Board of Education meeting, we started our discussion with the Phase 3 portion of the budget and what that would entail. Many of the Phase 3 projects are related to the upgrade of our fields at both East Meadow High School and Clark High School. At our last board meeting, we also had a professor from the Midwest who we brought in as an expert who spoke to us on grass fields and turf fields, what are some of the pitfalls of both. And we also had a later discussion that evening with bond counsel related to some of our options. So in a continuation of our discussion, tonight we're going to present the board with some options related to turf fields and what those costs would be should we decide to move forward with turf fields at both East Meadow High School and Clark High School. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the program over to Dr. Pizzo.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Card, and thank you to our Board of Education giving me the opportunity to bring forward these options. I'm going to say this was very interesting looking at some of the different alternatives. I normally won't read off the slides, but I really want to go through some of the information. This is really just covering some of the different options. I thought it was some nice photos going through that. So breaking down the options, I thought the most appropriate to do first would be the crumb rubber, which is the most common solution that's known. I think the vast majority of the fields are still the crumb rubber. And if this information came from our architect in regards to the square foot costs, you'll see it's a little bit different from one side of one application to another. What we did with this, the way these numbers were broken down, is we looked at the cost per field, which is different because of the layouts of the field. So you'll see that the multiplier that we have for that type of solution. Some of the things we would need to do to make the Clark field on the main site work, because we would have to frame it out. And we looked at we had to look at the SECRA, which was not going to be a charge. We do usually put in 18% soft costs. We did drop that down, figuring we were going to capture some savings from the bond projects that are already underway. We also offset the money from the field that we would forego at East Meadow High School under this option. So you're looking at, after the offset, just over $2.5 million. This is that's the net amount it would be over what we have currently allocated. But there are other options around, and a lot of people brought up some interesting items to look at, so we tried to get a hold of information on every option that we could find. This option is really straightforward. I really, when we had Dr. Toms give his presentation, he stressed very much on the heat aspect. And this is a simple change to the traditional crumb rubber solution, where it's dyed green, so it doesn't absorb as much heat. The understanding we have here is that it's going to drop the heat sink. It will have a positive effect on the temperature on the ground level of 10 or 15 degrees, which is something it's something that I think would warrant consideration. See, it adds a slight amount to the cost, and we're dealing with big numbers. So I know a slight amount is really not slight, so I don't want to take it lightly. But when you look at the benefit, it would be roughly $15.30 a square foot, same dimensions. We're still going with the same solution to compare apples to apples. So with having something that would have a less of an issue with heat, it would be that the same cost as the first solution in option one, but you would add $58,000, and that's for both fields combined. Then we got into some really interesting options. The sneaker fill was something that I had heard about. I don't recall if that's something that we've spoken about at any of our previous meetings, but we really wanted to look at every option that we could identify that was already in use locally, that we could get information from practitioners. I wanted to speak with people at the field level so we would have firsthand information. I believe them over either side, the people who are dealing with it every day. So we get a little bit of information on this. Our current architect has installed these fields before, and you can see this is an option that does add a bit of cost. You're still dealing with a rubber product, but it's coming from sneakers as opposed to tires. That's not something that I really have any details to share on, except for saying it's just a different solution, and it's a newer solution, so there's not as much testing available on it. But I think it's close enough to the other options 1 and 2. There really hasn't been concerns raised about considering the impact and some of the issues that could potentially be related to injuries. Last option was an option I was candidly very interested in hearing more about. Actually, I spoke with the director of facilities, and actually Craig Camerata, our director of facilities in East Meadow. We both were able to speak with the director, and he gave us a great deal of information. It was really fascinating. They've had a field in place since 2016. He gave us the pluses and minuses. Their community was really wanted to have this option, and so it's something that they had to work with, but they were happy with the results overall. What this is, I know we've spoke about a cork field. I've heard that before, and I think some of the early installations were just purely caulk. Some of the issues that you have with the caulk is it's light. When it rains, it could wash away. So I think that the solution that most often is being used, if you're looking at something under this umbrella, would be coconut with caulk, and it kind of mitigates some of those issues. You still do have some issues with rain and displacement, but you do have those issues with any one of the options, and any field's going to need maintenance. So they didn't look at that from our conversations as being a major concern that they had. But it is substantially more expensive. You see the square foot cost of over $20 a square foot. There's not a lot of experience with these fields being put in, which is a concern, and we don't have any of the longitudinal testing on this. So that's something that's a concern for some. I have spoke to a couple of districts that are going through a similar process that we are. But it is a very interesting solution, and I think that things are evolving. So, as information gets available, we're always looking. But this would add to for the two fields over $1 million in additional costs. And as you can see, some of the things I mentioned on the note on top, there is weeding that needs to be done. It turns out with this more natural surface that it is prone to get weeds, which happens to any surface, happens in cracks in the sidewalk. So that's not something that should be a surprise. We are limited by New York State law on what we can use to apply for weeds, but we're dealing with that with other surfaces. But that's something that he made a point of. And something interesting that they mentioned is, and the reason why this is so much more expensive, is that the water is collected underneath the field, and it has a pooling effect, and the humidity, as the water evaporates, that it keeps the surface in the field damp. Absent that, if it doesn't have the proper maintenance, it'll turn brown. The coconut will have a brown appearance. But again, speaking with the practitioner, the director of facilities who's been doing it, it's been something they've been able to work with. And I said he gave it very strong reviews. So I think 4 viable options. I hope this information was helpful for moving forward.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pizzo. I think at this point, the board has been presented with a couple of possible turf options. So I guess moving forward, it's what's the next steps? Some of the things that need to be considered, given the information we have received thus far, is number one, how much would each option cost every household in the district should we decide to move forward with proposing to our voters any one of these options? So I think that's important, because there would have to be some kind of campaign to the community to explain what exactly it is that we're doing. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, I think it's important to just back up for a second, just because we did speak with bond counsel after our last meeting. We received what I think is good news, or at least it was news that I wasn't expecting to hear, which said, and bond counsel provided to us, that the unused portion of the bond that we have not yet drawn from can be reallocated. However, since the bond was voted on by the community, to change what that allocation is going towards needs to be re-voted on. So I was expecting them to come in and say, no, it was voted on, it's lost funds, if you don't draw it, fine, but it can be reallocated. So that is good news. However, obviously, it's not dollar for dollar, as Dr. Pizzo has provided. So changing from the natural turf fields to natural grass fields to turf fields has a minimum of an additional $1.5 million to up to 2.5 to 3.5. 3.5 of additional funds over what the current bond had provided for. So not only would the vote have to be to reallocate the funds from the current bond, but would be for additional bond monies over and above what we had previously. Does that make sense?
And that brings
Okay,
us to the point that I just.
Yes, now that brings us to where Dr. Card was as to what the next steps in the process
The
were.
next step would, I think Dr. Luce had something to say.
I just wanted to comment that in our efforts to be as transparent as possible with the community, we want you all to, and to spread the word, that we are doing our best to follow the law. Not the best, we have to follow the law. So in order for any of this to occur, it's up to the community, it's not up to us as a board, and because it has previously been voted on, it would be something that would have to be put back to the community. So.
Just to talk about that, one of, or options we had previously discussed as a board was trying to put this into our budget, in which case the only vote that would be from the community would be a yay or nay on the school's budget each year. It would have lasting effects that we found not only on that year's budget, even if it passed, but on what increases could be in years following, which meant it likely wouldn't have made sense financially. Basically fiscally impossible. In this way, the board can't make this decision on our own. We have to now turn it over to the community and say, please tell us what you want, these are what the options will be. And I think that's going to be not, do you want this type of field or this type of field? It's not going to be that. The board is going to come to a decision as to, this is what we're looking at, this is the type of field, and then bring it to the community where we will have two votes, two items, yay or nay on our budget, and then yay or nay on this bond issue.
Very good. And so that brings us to the next step, something that the board needs to consider. The board would have the option of establishing a separate referendum, meaning a vote that's on the modification of the current bond and the increase for whatever turf field we select. So if the Board of Education decided to do a separate vote, it would be at a cost of about $30,000. It would be a separate referendum. Or
Yeah, no, please.
the board can decide to include the modification of the bond on the budget vote, budget and trustee election vote in May as a separate proposition. Now, there's some pros and cons to either one, right? There might be, for the first option, a referendum, there might be some naysayers who would say we're spending $30,000 to re-vote on something that was already voted on, and we have to be mindful of that. And on the second one, by coupling a proposition for a modification to the board with our budget, we might run the risk of having our budget go down. So those are things that the board needs to consider as it moves forward. And I think there was one more issue, Dr. Pizzo, related to.
Yeah, would you like, I could talk about the timing of the financing? Yes, as the window for us to be able to make this change is contingent upon us not having completed the financing yet. If we were to do the vote later, that would be something that we couldn't do the financing until that was done. So that's something that would impact, it's manageable, but it's just something to be aware. Yeah, it puts things off because we have two different bands out there. Those are short-term notes, 1-year intervals. We have one coming up in the winter, one coming up in the spring. So we would have to do some short-term financing to bridge over to past this vote before we then finalize the financing to keep that window of opportunity open. But it is manageable.
Do we have any research, because there's two sides to this. One is wanting to be able to fulfill the community's desire for great fields, but then there's also the health questions. So do we have, I know that there's information out there, information galore about crumb rubber. Do we have information on the health issues related to either sneaker fill or this cork in it?
Well, I would say with the sneaker fill, you're dealing with a manufactured rubber product. I don't know the components that go into that, so that would be something, if the board would like for me to research further. I couldn't really make a definitive statement except for saying it's a manufactured rubber product. That may not necessarily be a problem depending on what the binding agent was when they manufactured sneakers, the sneakers original.
I think that would be the next step. To talk about the pros and cons of each option, as well as develop a per household cost, should we decide to go with each one of those options. So I think for the next Board of Education meeting, January, that should be our next step. Having a presentation on each option, pros and cons, and what the per household cost would be. And I think then, by January, we should be at a point, this is something that I think the board needs to consider over the next several weeks, the direction we would like to go in, either a referendum before the May vote or post-May vote, or coupling the proposition with the budget vote. Now, just some factors that we need to be aware of. Should we decide to move with a proposition in May and it is successful, we would then probably be able to move forward, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Pizzo, with beginning work, or do we have to go through the state approval process?
Well, we would always have to go through the state approval process for a project such as this, but the good news is on that, when you're dealing with a renovation of an existing field, the process isn't as arduous, and there are options in regard to expedited reviews, which are pretty reasonable. So there's a little bit of optimism that it could go faster than what we've traditionally seen.
Very good. So there's some additional work that we would have to do behind the scenes as the board contemplates a proposition. With a successful passage, we will then have to work with Ms. Detour and her staff to begin to think about field usage over the summer into the fall, right? Those are things that we're going to need to do. But going back to the vote, the reason why January is critical is because there's going to be a timeline, as required by law, in terms of postings, et cetera, that need to be accomplished prior to any vote happening.
That was actually my question also, so thank you. If we should decide to move forward with a vote, let's say we decide to do it, one of the options would be not coupled with the budget vote in May. How much time do we need to prepare something like that? When theoretically could a vote be, in the winter?
So your question is how much notice could we do? The last time we did the budget vote, we did it in March. I would say the next meeting being early January. I think if there was a decision then, I would say that would be a possibility. But what I'd like to do is get the information from our bond counsel and confirm that timeline, if that's the direction the board's looking at.
Thank you.
Excellent. I know a lot of our, what I will call the turf field friends are here tonight. I just want it noted and on the record, the board has received some correspondence from parents who are more in favor of natural grass fields for health, safety concerns. So there are two parties out there, just to put that out there, just so you guys know, as I'm sure you knew already. Does anyone else have any questions, comments on this?
I just want to applaud the board for its transparency on this issue. I think that this is something that we've taken input from the community, we are discussing it, and we will continue to update the community on where this is going, trying to listen to all our constituents. So, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. And additionally, just so you guys know, I know we're going to discuss this in our next meeting in January. However, we discussed this, through weekly updates that we receive from Dr. Card. So we're continually getting more information on this as every single week goes by, and sometimes every few days as well. And it's something we will continue to work on. So with that, I believe we can move on to the rest of tonight's agenda, which no more presentations, so no more PowerPoint not working. With that said, if someone would like to make a motion to approve the curriculum and instruction consent agenda item, Ms. Baruch, second, Dr. Luce. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Excellent, thank you. The next is the personnel agenda. We're going to take item 1 separately first. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the tenure area change from intervention assistant to teaching assistant? Dr. Luce, second. Ms. Napolitano, discussion? Okay. Mr. Russo?
And we turn to Dr. Russo for a brief explanation to what this is.
So so this resolution is, so we have a category of staff intervention assistants who, going back to when the position was established back in, I want to say 1998, they were appointed to the intervention assistant tenure area. So we've done some research, and we've determined that technically that tenure area doesn't exist, that the intervention assistants fall within the teaching assistant tenure area. So this resolution and the individuals who've signed a waiver basically they've agreed to change their tenure area from intervention assistant to teaching assistant because when they were appointed initially to the intervention assistant tenure area, it was to a tenure area that doesn't exist. So we have to be able to change it to a tenure area which does exist, and that is teaching assistant. And that's what this resolution and the waivers that the individuals signed off on, that's what that does.
Excellent, thank you. And this is something that was brought to the board's attention, so
Yes.
we then made this determination. All in favor? 7-0. Excellent, thank you. Now for the remainder of the consent agenda thank you, personnel items. Would someone like to make a motion to approve personnel items 2 through 18? Ms. Baruch, second, Dr. Eckers. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Excellent, thank you. Next is the business item agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve business item agenda numbers 1 through 10? Ms. Benowitz, second. Dr. Luce, thank you. Any discussion?
I just have one.
Please.
It's not, I guess I'm only saying it because it's in the approval of the internal auditor's report, but for the 3rd year in a row, she is talking to us about the need for flexible spending for our staff in terms of pre-tax allocations to help save not only the district money, but also the faculty. So I would like for us to really look into that for going forward.
Go ahead.
That's an item we would need to negotiate, and, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's in the notes for that, yeah.
All in favor? 7-0. Thank you. Next, would someone like to make a motion to approve the custodial overtime report for October 2019? Ms. Napolitano, second. Ms. Baruch, discussion?
So just in looking over because I know that we've been keeping an eye on the custodial overtime, in one of the reports that we had, it said that 300-plus hours were because there was no sub available. So I would just like to urge the powers that be what are we doing to recruit subs?
A couple of weeks ago, in one of the updates, we had a advertisement that we posted. We go through this on a rotating basis where we're losing people. We've had this discussion related to the current state of the economy. So when we're hiring subs, it's hard to hold on to them because they jump, right, to places that are either paying them more money, providing them with better working hours, but we continue to try to attract quality individuals into the district as much and as often as possible.
I just have a quick question. Are we short custodial staff?
I don't want to make a statement that will get me in trouble with Bob Callen, so I'm going to be very careful. One of the requirements for working as a custodian here in the East Meadow School District is a residency requirement. And so while we are trying to do the outreach, there's a caution in terms of trying to work off of a list and trying to hire folks just because they work here. We have people in place who are of high quality, but don't live in the district. And so there's a balancing act between trying to go out on that list to try to find quality candidates, because once you, and Mr. Russo will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm learning a lot about Nassau County Civil Service. Once you go out and you get that list and you start looking at individuals, you are bound to hire people from that list. And so you might end up in a position where you're displacing people and hiring people from off a list that have not been vetted. That's why in our district, we have a nice system where we have people here who we're able to vet. We develop an understanding of their work ethic. But the thing that holds us from actually fully appointing some people is that rule. Okay? Did I get that right?
I'd have a couple questions. For the regularly scheduled custodial overtime,
Okay.
it's Halloween patrol?
Who?
Halloween patrol?
Yes.
This is, I mean, it seems like an excessive number of hours for Halloween patrol. I mean, I know that we want to protect our buildings and grounds, but do we really need 354 hours of custodial overtime for this?
We could take a look at that, but remember, we do have to have that patrol. As a matter of fact, recently, one of our vehicles that was parked in the parking lot, the window was busted out. And on Halloween Eve, Halloween night, the night after, there's a lot of I don't want to say students, there's a lot of young people who engage in levels of vandalism. And should we decrease that, well, then the costs will outweigh the benefits from some of the vandalism that would occur as a result of not having those people present. I was actually here on Halloween night, and our custodians were outside patrolling and shushing kids away. I mean, kids do come to our places to hang out on Halloween night. And I think if we don't have that presence, we'd come back in the morning and find an environment that we would not appreciate. Yeah, that too.
What was I saying? That's right.
Just one question. Is it possible, since we're talking about custodial staff, is it possible to get some kind of idea of the custodians for each facility, for the elementary schools? I know that some of the elementary schools are much larger than other ones, but just so we can see if possibly we don't need more custodians and then alleviate some of the overtime. I don't know, I've heard from different buildings that there is a shortage of custodians in their buildings, which would mean that some custodians are doing overtime.
Right, we'll go ahead and do a review of that.
Right,
but-
if we could just do that, I'd appreciate
Yeah,
it.
last year, we had this issue and this conversation, and one of the things that we started doing was internally approving our custodial overtime. And what that did was, between Pat and I and I think it was Bob Garris at the time, we were able to bring down that overtime by looking at places where if we knew well in advance, there were certain things that we would be able to do. But the issue always becomes, how do we cover when someone calls out sick or when someone is going on vacation and you don't have access to qualified substitutes?
Right.
That's an ongoing issue in our custodial ranks, but I think I could have a conversation with Mr. Camarada and Dr. Pizzo, and we'll put something together for the board's information.
Thank you.
Okay?
Yes, and I think if you look back over it, because we get the reports over the last few years, it's been brought down tremendously with, obviously, and the schools are in great shape. So it's been, I think, really good, and I'm very proud of what we've done. That being said, all in favor? 7-0. Okay, excellent. Now is the time for our public commentary section number 2. This is for any items that were on or not on the agenda. We do have some cards. You will be limited to 3 minutes to speak. If I cut you off, it's not because I don't like what you're saying or like what you're saying, or you're all tired of hearing me say this every meeting. But the first person up, please, is Ms. Worthman.
Good evening. I'd just like to take this opportunity to provide some more information regarding mental health awareness. First, I'd like to bring your attention to a website, mhanys.org/events-main/annual-conference. I'll get back to this later. I'll repeat it again. It's mhanys.org/events-main/annual-conference. Second, in case some people don't know, I'd like to make everyone aware that there is a mental health section, awareness section on the East Meadow School District website. If you go to the website, you click on For Parents, you scroll down to Mental Health Resources, you will be brought to a site with several links to information including fact sheets on youth and adult mental health and self-care suggestions. Next, I'd like to thank Dr. Carr, Dr. Casamento, the board, and the Access Committee for providing the Mental Health First Aid for Youth program on November 1st. I was lucky enough to attend the program, and it was fantastic. Everything that it promised to be and more. It's comforting to know that there are now 30 more East Meadow residents in our community trained in mental health first aid for youth. It's my hope that the district will be able to provide this program again in the spring, and I strongly urge everyone to take advantage of this program if it is provided. On the same weekend we had this program, the Mental Health Association of New York State had its annual conference where Dr. Anthony Rothstein was the keynote speaker. He gave a presentation titled Stress Resilience in Adolescence, Building Healthy Minds for Life Transitions. There is a link on the Mental Health Association New York State website, and that's the link I gave you before, which is mhanys.org/events-main/annual-conference. If you go to the website and you page down, there's a link to his presentation. There's tons of information. What stood out to me most is a section on emotional readiness. It consisted of topics on necessary life skills that are not taught in school, conscientiousness, self-management, interpersonal skills, self-control, grit, risk management, self-acceptance, open mindset / help seeking. And so basically, I sent this document to the Board of Ed and some staff members. I don't know if anyone had a chance to look it over. But I guess my question is it possible to put a link from this onto our website on the mental health? And I don't know if that's something you need to discuss. I don't know if you need to get permission from anyone, but I just figured I'd just bring that up.
You can go ahead.
Well, that's basically, basically the question was, I don't know if it's possible to provide a link on our website. You
can
can't.
go ahead and forward it to us, but
Okay.
we do internal conversations, and it's through our Health and Welfare Committee that they make determinations that what goes on the website. I will forward that to them, and they can review and make that determination.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Worthman. Thank you. Ms. Volpe? Come on down.
First, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity to listen to what the community has had to say. So I appreciate the presentation this evening on the alternative artificial fields, because this has been something that the community has been looking for quite some time. My question was, I think I forgot what my question was, sorry. Oh, yes, I remember now. Thank you. It's been a really long day. My question is, how do you plan to get this new information out to the community so that the community is aware of what is going to be proposed?
The same way in which we did the bond info, we would send out brochures. The same way in which we do our budget brochures, we would follow the same format.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Lako, who tried using nice handwriting and then his regular handwriting to get 2 cards in.
It doesn't happen, I'm sorry. So there was a question that was floated earlier about timelines. I wanted to get a definitive answer on that. I have what I think is the right answer. Sending a quick note to some folks at state school boards. I think it's 45 days we need to go out to make it public. I think that was a question that was floated around, but if we get the first posting 45 days, am I correct in saying that if we had it out 45 days notice, we can have an election kind of whenever you guys so desire?
Yeah, I agree, but going back to the question that was just asked by Ms. Volpe, typically with a bond, you want to make sure you do a campaign.
Oh, I don't disagree. I just
Right.
wanted to make sure I'm working off the, and again, you want to back out, again, a
Yeah,
campaign and
exactly.
roll up and
Yep.
getting information out about,
Yep.
about the referendum. Second piece is, and this may be a lot more complicated and maybe require an offline answer, but our credit rating kind of went up in this process. I think we just went to AA3 this past May. Am I correct in that? Do we have an advantage? So we've booked bonds. Is there some savings that could be realized in there? And again, I know we're talking about, bigger numbers, but now that we've got a better rating, can we go out and, ask for can we get a better deal on new bonds if we do go out to a new vote? Thoughts? I know that's a big public finance question and a what if, but.
Well, we're always looking to maximize, and yeah, when we go out for the bonds, we're going out through a bid process, through our financial person, and yes, our credit rating does give us the very favorable rates that we received on the first 2 bands and hope to receive on any bridge loan and on the ultimate bond.
So I think there's some savings that could be realized there that we're not talking about. And again, when you're talking about, again, these are not small numbers anymore.
I think you're also, we have to see I think the biggest determinant factor will be what the rates are when we go out for the bond ultimately, and so far the rates are.
They're pretty steady.
The trends are good so
Yeah,
far.
trends are good.
So hopefully.
All right, those are my 2 things.
Thank you very much. Ms. Matinas.
First of all, I want to thank you for talking about the turf and not burying it, Anyway, our kids right now are playing on turf fields in every district they play against. So it's nothing new to them. I have a 41-year-old who played through college before all the new turf fields were out, and now the kids that he's coaching are playing elsewhere, except here, and maybe 1 or 2 other districts close by. But anyway, and taking the turf and the grass fields into consideration as far as cost, the regular old grass fields are not that cheap to keep, because if you do it right, you have to have the machinery, first of all, which we don't have, and that's extremely expensive. And then you got to take them down. You have to rebuild the field before you put the so-called dirt and seed. And that's going to take a couple of years. So, I say roll the dice and go with the turf. And I think you'll have a whole lot of happy campers. And also the Halloween situation. Since the custodians have been on site, now I live down the block from Bowling Green, so I've always been circling around on Halloween because there was always a lot of vandalism at the school and around the school. And since the custodians have been on site, it's a major improvement. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, that's the end of the blue cards. No? Was there more? Does this say, so this is my fault, because it says Jen Lako. And I thought it said John Lako. Because I'm looking and I'm like, it's the same thing. So that's my fault. Ms. Lako, the better half, please. Yes. Huh? Definitely the better handwriting.
I fill out all the school forms.
So I do have a couple of questions. We spoke at the last meeting about costs, and I appreciate the costs that were put up for the different options. But the questions I have relate to how we got to those costs, because it said that you worked with the current architect that is doing the current project. I just don't understand where those numbers came from, the $1 million, the square foot numbers. Who came up with that number?
Numbers that we, right?
Yes.
Our architects.
Okay, so was there any discussion with the turf providers?
No, this is a preliminary estimate. And typically the way in which we operate, we have an architectural firm that works directly with us in these types of matters. We don't negotiate directly with the contractors. The architect is giving us market value on what they think something will cost. As we move through the process, the estimates are refined, and that's why one of the things that I'm now asking for is how much it would cost per household. So
Okay.
that's the next step in the process.
So, and to further my question, the reason that I'm asking is because I would have hoped to see data against what other districts have already implemented, because that's all public information.
Right.
And I know their numbers were, on the synthetic side, were a little bit lower based on the field layouts that they had.
Right.
So if we could have some type of comparison, I think it would help from a community perspective to understand the benefits for what we're doing.
Okay.
Along with, there are rebates at the federal, state, and with the actual provider level, rebates, grants, and sponsorships. Some of the districts have adopted a creative model that have allowed for both the community businesses as well as individuals to sponsor either bricks or signs or something that would help to defray some of the costs associated with the implementation. So if we could think a little bit creative about how we present the solutions. I mean, seeing $1 million, but having some benefit to that might help us overall with whatever solution we decide to go forward with. The last thing that I have is, well, I have two more. The layout and the design was something that we spoke about at the last meeting as well, especially with the East Meadow High School and being able to park for events and parking on those fields. So I know that'll come up at a community concern if we put in new fields and then we're parking on them again. So we really want to, I think when we address the solution, we really need to look at all of the community concerns, including, do we have the right layout? Do we have the right solutions? Can we, partner with the hospital across the street for, parking for, ooh, is that me already? Sorry. Okay, so, okay. All right, that's all. I'll send you emails.
Please. Thank you very much. Thank you, and I'm sorry I misread your card. Thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda are salary changes that have gone around, hopefully for the last time physically. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the salary changes? Dr. Eckers, second, Ms. Baruch. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Excellent. Next is the outgoing comments by board members. Does any board member have any parting words? Dr. Luce?
I just want to thank the community for having a dialogue. I think it's been a very productive and fruitful dialogue, and we want to hear your thoughts, we want to hear your concerns, and we're hoping that we're able to come to a really good final decision and resolution.
Excellent. Anyone else? With that being said, we are going to have an executive session. We are not going to come back out, so while you are welcome to stick around to watch us get into our cars afterwards, thank you all for coming tonight. We do appreciate it. We do like when you come and share your... Yes, and happy holidays. Hopefully we'll see most everyone at our next meeting. And if someone would like to make a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss employment history of specific personnel, Ms. Baruch. Second, Ms. Napolitano. Any discussion of that? No, good. All in favor? 7-0. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
But,